Okay, the video is live and we're gonna hop right in. Welcome if you're able to join, and if not, please make sure that you leave comments after the fact. Let's all take a deep breath. Just checking in with my own body, my own emotions. Gonna make sure my volume is nice and loud. Thank you so much for this opportunity to share and to learn together. So behind me, yes, I am previously a K-12 teacher and principal. So I'm standing. I use my hands a lot when I speak. And I also have my trusty whiteboard. This is partly for me to remember, but also for you to have a visual depiction to refer back to. Feel free to go back, review different parts of this. So we're going to dive right in. There's three things that I want to give us all today to continue to ponder and just to share in conversation some of my own evolution as an entrepreneur. And I'm going on 8 years of owning my own consulting firm in the K-12 education space predominantly. And I'm so thrilled to share with you all what I'm learning. So let's jump into it. We're going to talk about three big things today. Dr. David Hawkins' Map of Consciousness and how it has impacted my awareness as a business owner. We're going to also talk about 7 wounds. I put those little teardrops because sometimes I always have thought of wounds as labeling them bad or negative or ooh, like scary. And I want to encourage myself and you all to, as much as possible, pause from labeling those emotions. So these wounds are also something that if I would have known sooner in my own entrepreneurial journey, I think that I could have had a little bit more stability in identifying tricky emotions, things like imposter syndrome, rejection, things like that. So we're going to talk about what those 7 things are just to be aware of, because for any human and any experience that we live in this life, these are consistently the things across any type of religious or spiritual practices that will always come up for any human experience, regardless of our gender, race, ethnicity, nationality, etc. All right, and then finally, I'm going to give you 3 tangibles before we get off of this live of things that you can do immediately and consider immediately to really boost how you're fueling your business with your high energy emotions. If that is you, and at times we all have highly energetic emotions. And there's certain frequencies that are attached to those emotions. So that leads us to Dr. David Hawkins' Map of Consciousness. You can do a quick chat GPT or good old Google search if you are interested in finding images, visuals of all of his work and his in-depth years and years of research. Essentially what I discovered when coming across this map of consciousness was there is a specific frequency attached to every emotion that we experience. And one of the struggles that I had as a business owner was 2.5 years ago, I tragically lost my mother. This was also post-pandemic, so it was January 2022. I was going on about year 6 of owning and operating my consulting firm, Educator Aid, and I was engaged in a lot of things that I started to realize because of the distractions of depression and grief from that, I was not making clear-headed decisions and I was acting out of a lot of fear. Now, mind you, I've always been a person, not always, but at times have struggled with anxiety and PTSD based on some things that I've gone through in my life and survived. That's a win. I feel very strong and empowered in those ways. And also, I have to be real about the yin and yang of that experience. We can also feel very, very fragile in our own dealings and trusting ourselves and our intuition as business owners, our self-worth, that sacral chakra down below. So one of the cool things that when you look up this chart, and what I had a realization was, unfortunately, I was operating at a frequency of 100. And so again, if you've ever seen those videos on YouTube and it says Hertz HZ or megahertz HZ 528, all of that language, and then it might have visual depictions of frequencies and it says retrain your brain for this, reprogram your mind. There is legitimacy to understanding the frequency by which we experience emotion, not because I needed to look back and go, ugh, 100. No, I went through such a period of trauma and distress at different points that I was operating in complete anxiety. So I knew that, but it was also, I feel confident in certain ways. So then I would go, well, I'm not really afraid. And I would talk myself out of it instead of naming the thing, accepting it so I could choose to change and I could choose to reframe my story or mindset. So I want to first just ground us in that map of consciousness, really refer to it as a tool if you're not familiar with it, because it gave me a lot of deeper understanding because I struggled throughout my whole life and partly my upbringing and unpacking some of my own cultural context of growing up in a bicultural home. Mother was Amish Mennonite background, so largely Switzerland heritage on that side, and my father is Puerto Rican, so have Taino roots, which are the indigenous tribe from Puerto Rico, and those were very, very much different cultures in my home. So there's a lot of dysfunction growing up. Mother had mental health struggles, etc. I'm sure there's a lot of relatability in this group, and especially for those of us who choose to really found a business and a purpose in life that directs us to serving and helping others. I think that's very common, but then we often have unaddressed issues or wounds ourselves that will kind of rear their ugly head. Some people call that shadow work or mirror work. No matter how you name it, when we go to those depths and really understand those levels of where we're at and how we're vibrating, it's something really, really powerful because I was forced to confront things that would have actually created further obstacles in my business. And now, fast forward 2.5 years to where I am standing right now. And there was a time period I literally thought, and I'm grateful for any opportunity to speak because until about 6 months ago, I did not speak. And I rarely facilitated because I felt as though the last significant, meaningful, most meaningful talk I would ever give was delivering my mother's eulogy, which I did. And that was very hard for me to then say what more could be important to talk about. And so for me to be real and also stand before you and say, to go through heartache, to go through betrayal, to go through these deep losses, to have someone steal from you, I'm naming things that have happened in real time, like in my business and also personal life, because we are our businesses, and it's a projection of who we are in those moments in our personal worlds and what we choose to show up and share with the world. I say all that to say you're not alone. There are other people who understand those common emotions and feelings. So I've given you a lot of information about me and a little bit about David Hawkins. I'm looking at my time and I have about 9 minutes. I don't see anybody live in the chat or comments right now, so we won't pause. But if you have anything at this moment, if you rewatch this and want to comment below what's resonating so far, because I think it's very powerful. Again, the great psychiatrist Carl Rogers said, when I accept who I am, the curious paradox is this: when I accept who I am, then I can change. And there was a long period of time, especially me living in apathy and resisting some things after my mother passed, that I did not want to accept that I was living in this space of fear and anxiety. So, little quick story break. It's a Native American tale, and told probably different in different traditions, but I want to share with you a little bit about the red-winged blackbird, the tale of the red-winged blackbird. We're taking a little bit of a pause and a storytelling break here. The red-winged blackbird has appeared multiple times in my life, signaling and connecting with me in a very powerful way. I want to preface it with that if you are not noticing and connecting with nature around you, I encourage you to do that as well. There's a lot of these same frequencies and things that we can just feel and experience in a very different, sensual feeling way at the core root of who we are and in our bodies here on earth, that I think was also missing, especially pandemic for me. That was something that felt like I departed from, and I needed to recapture that and really be connecting with Mother Nature and that Atabe spirit. That's a nature goddess and the main deity in Taino culture in Puerto Rico. All right, so back to the red-winged blackbird. The tale goes like this. There was a man, he was so frustrated with his circumstances, with the state of the world, with how people were treating one another. He was mad, he was irate, and he's looking down on his village off of a hilltop. and he's putting up his hands in frustration and saying, I'm going to burn it all down. I'm going to burn it all down to the ground. We're going to start over. No, we have to just start it over, burn it all to the ground. And he proclaims this in the mountaintops where he believes no one can hear him. There's a beautiful jet black, velvety wings blackbird who's flying through at that time. The blackbird continues on their journey into the village, giving a very unique sound and cry and warning to the people that the man, the farmer, who was looking over this village and just shaking his head and in despair and distress, and the blackbird warns the village people that this is going to happen. So he doesn't get to follow through with what he proclaimed. He goes back to the mountaintop. He realizes he stopped from his mission. And he goes back to his mountaintop to contemplate this and realize, I'm still upset. I'm still angry. This can't be fair. I just want to hit the reset button. I want to hit restart. Now, we know from a mindset perspective, we can always do that. I can shift any story that I'm telling myself at any moment of any given time. I have that power as a human being. We don't always realize we have that power, and we often feel constrained by external things when really this is an inside job. The man is contemplating and just kind of pondering, and he sees the blackbird in all its majestic beauty flying through. And he takes the largest shell he can find and hurls it with all of his might at the blackbird. And the blackbird squeals out a distinct cry like had never been heard over the village. And the man looks up, and the blackbird is still taking flight, to his disbelief. And now there's just a brilliance on the wing of red. Not even a color I can describe, because every time, and they're all over my backyard all summer here in the Chicago area. I saw them all over Puerto Rico when I've been there. It's been such a dominant force in my life, in my story, that this tale resonates, because not only does the bird survive, it's even more majestic and brilliant and signaling to people that it's a warrior. So if you ever see a red-winged blackbird and have the pleasure of seeing one up close or communing with one in nature, you'll know that you can't even name the specific color of red and its brilliance, and it bleeds into a very orange and yellow pattern on the side of that majestic wing. So one of the things that I always rely on with this story is the persistence that it takes, and this concept that we see across many spiritual practices, across many indigenous tales, no matter where you're from in the world, that even something that someone intends for your harm, even something that we think is meant for our demise or our betrayal, is in fact a way to shift and make ourselves even more beautiful and more profound in what our story and our purpose is telling. So I wanted to share that story because it's so meaningful to me, but so symbolic. And in these moments of turmoil, especially in grief fog and depression following my mom's passing, I often would see pictures of me as this warrior with a machete and just saying, I'm gonna tear it all down. And there's something that's so beautiful in entrepreneurship, to not holding anything too precious and being willing to shift. But there's also something really, really profound about trusting ourselves enough and trusting the process and the universe and the great creator enough to say, hang on, your only solution is not to burn it all to the ground. So I see that it shows my connection is experiencing issues. I hope that this is still going. The final things I want to close us out with and to bring it all together is those 7 wounds that I want to name, so that we're all aware of them in our practices, how to work with different frequencies and identify our emotions so that we don't become like the man who's upset. And like the man who wants to burn it all to the ground, we actually are more resilient and come out more beautiful in this continuous improvement process that we're all part of as entrepreneurs. Those 7 things, and again, whether you look across Buddhism, Islam, Judaism, spirituality practices, Christianity, Catholicism, etc., you're going to find similar scriptural and holy teachings that resonate with these issues or wounds that every human confronts at some point in their life. It's how we choose to show up and confront them. So as business owners, I think it's really, really important, especially when we get caught up sometimes in things like funnels and social media and all of this stuff. Those are great tools. But what's going on in here with us? And what are the things that continue to show up that we are responsible for becoming our best selves of recognizing? The 7 issues are this: control, trust, manipulation, safety, security, approval, and abandonment. Now, we don't have time to go in depth with those. I do love to talk about all of these things more in depthly. So be sure that you go follow my personal Facebook page. It is open in public, as I believe anybody can follow, but I'm always putting different resources, everything, check out our podcast, that kind of stuff over there. You can learn more about me over there in my work history and things like that. But I encourage you to do that. Love to connect over there and for you to hop in with different things. Once again, those 7 wounds: control, trust, manipulation, safety, security, approval, and abandonment. All kind of paradoxes in and of themselves, don't you think? So if any of those resonate with you that I named, also be sure to drop that in the comment. I will try to come back and engage and see who's commenting here. And I see that my timer I set, I have about a minute left. And that brings me to the final tangibles for you all as entrepreneurs. And those would be 3 game changers. Okay, so the 3 tangible game changers, and I'll put it down just a little bit. You might be able to see the writing down here. It says time, emotion, and psychological needs. So really cool thing happened in 2021. I became one of the first Latinas in the United States to become certified in the process communication model built on Dr. Eric Berne's work, transactional analysis theory. My community personally works with NASA, Apple, IKEA, and many other organizations to provide the PPI, or personality pattern inventory. So think human design, Myers-Briggs, DISC, all of these things on steroids that identify exactly your personality structure, what triggers you, and then how to meet those psychological needs. So I'm a big proponent because it changed my world and how I viewed the world, even being a person involved with understanding astrology, involved with understanding human design and many other pieces, because I love to study humans. My PhD is in cultural psychology and cultural neuroscience. That's something I encourage you to look into, is what are my psychological needs and how am I meeting them every day? Do not rely on others to be meeting those. That is an inside job. Second thing, the emotions. So really every day sitting and putting reminders on your phone to check in, how am I doing? Look up one of the color emotion wheels or use Dr. David Hawkins' chart, which is also aligned to the 7 chakras, core chakras that we have. And then finally, the 3rd tangible game changer, really examine your relationship with time and how you view time. Try to shift from, I need time management, I need calendar management, to energy management. So final 3 game changers: be aware of your psychological needs and how to meet them on each and every day, because we're constantly going in and out of distress, whether it's I broke a hangnail to a fender bender. 2 different levels of distress, but it's actually causing distress in our physical bodies. Second thing, know how to identify, name, understand, and unpack your emotions on a daily basis multiple times. And then examine your relationship and concept of time management versus energy management. We are at almost exactly 19 minutes. Chantel, not sure if I'm saying your name right. Thanks so much for the invite. It's great to be here, you all. Again, I'm Justine Gonzalez. Thank you for tuning in. And as I say on my podcast, Love Learning You, let's continue to get compassionately curious together. Thank you all so much. I'm happy to be in community.